Hello, I'm Ashley and welcome to my space here. Today I want to talk to you about emotional resiliency and really learning how to move through our emotions in a healthy and harmonious way. And I kind of wanted to give you a description, something that came to my mind to maybe help you understand a little bit more about emotional resiliency and how you can learn how to be more present, be more conscious, and be more aware of your emotional state in every moment so that you can align with your highest self, your divine self, whatever you want to call it. Think of it as like your best self. You could think of it as like your healthiest self, your most successful self, your most elevated self, kind of like. When we act in alignment, when we're present, is when we're in contact with the most intuitive part of ourselves, which to me is our essence. And when we're in tune to our essence, we're no longer just identified with like the ego mind and like our identification to this physical world and like our race or our gender or our social status or our class. We're not identified to those things. We're connected to our essence, and we're connected to our essence. We're connected to the infinite part of ourselves, the eternal part of ourselves. So this is literally how we can access like heaven on earth, is by accessing our eternal selves. And to me, that's our emotional body, our emotional selves. But also, like, our emotional selves, you have to be very aware and conscious, because our emotional selves are also our inner child, and our emotional selves are very irrational sometimes. So that's why it's really important to cultivate mindfulness and presence and consciousness in your daily life, so you can literally be like the guardian of your emotional state. So this is what I kind of wanted to get into, and allowing ourselves to really feel our emotions, because what's happening, and maybe I'm just sensing this collectively, and it's something I feel called to speak about, because for me, I was very anxious and depressed. So it's 2:22 when I said that. So there might be a lot of people that are dealing with mental health issues or emotional issues, like emotional eating. And one thing that I think is the remedy is not necessarily depression medications and what I want to kind of speak about today is masking our emotional state. So we speak to the universe, not necessarily through our thoughts or through our physical selves, or even by praying or saying, we speak to the universe through our emotional state. So what we have to really learn to do is allow ourselves to express our emotions, and a lot of us are not taught how to do that. A lot of us have fears of being rejected or abandoned or neglected if we feel emotions. And so what a lot of us do, we actually feel a lot of sadness. Maybe a lot of us feel a lot of sadness. This is what was coming to me the most, because I was seeing this stagnant pond. And what happens is our emotions should always be circulating and flowing, because if you think about nature and its cycles, it is constantly in motion. It's constantly, you think about the trees, the leaves on the trees, from springtime when they're budding to when they're full blossom to when they die, they're growing in each moment every day, even if it's just by a second, or because we don't see it a lot of times, and that's actually happening for humans too. But if we can really slow down and be more present, we can watch our growth just as we watch the seasons change and the trees change on the leaves, and we can have that same beautiful experience. Think about how beautiful it is, the process of the trees, starting as a bud, as a little thing, and then growing, and we all have seasons. So learning how to move through these seasons of change with the most resiliency, with the most flexibility, because a lot of us are getting really stuck. So this is what happens. I was seeing a stagnant pond. A lot of people are feeling they're burning out, or they're spinning their tires and they're not getting anywhere. And this is what we're trying to do right now, is we're trying, and this is kind of my biggest thing with this message I'm giving you today, is what a lot of us are always trying to do is get out of our current state. We think that the grass is greener on the other side. Once I have this, I'll feel so much better. Or once I, a lot of people feel very sad, and so their vibration that they're holding in their body is sadness. But this is what happens, is a lot of times our egos are taught to mask that sadness. Do not feel sadness. Sadness makes you vulnerable. Sadness might make you seem weak. Sadness might get you rejected. Sadness might get you abandoned. And so we might be feeling very sad, but we mask it and we pretend on the outside, that, we're happy, or, but we're faking it. A lot of people are faking it. A lot of people are pros at pretending they're happy when they're actually, their vibration is sadness. So what happens when your vibration is sadness? Because if we don't allow our emotions to move, because emotions should be flowing, just like I said, like nature flows and moves and is constantly in motion, our emotions are the representation of like the nature within us, and it's like the wild within us. We can't really tame our emotions. It's not our job to control our emotions. Just like it's not our job to control the weather, yet here we are with weathermen trying to control the weather and trying to predict Mother Nature and trying to tame her, and we just can't. That's like the feminine essence, is like that wildness. It's not about taming it, it's about nurturing it so that it thrives, so that it grows, so that it produces life for us, and that's the feminine energy. It's the part of us that produces life, and it's the part of us that dies and continuously is reborn, just like the earth, just like the trees. They die every year and they come back to life, So it's just the same concept, but it's more about looking at our emotions. So it's not about getting out of your emotions. So a lot of people will, when you're stuck in the vibration of sadness, what will happen is what you feel is what the universe will give you. So how you feel is how you're communicating with the universe. And if you're feeling sad, and this means if you're feeling sad for more than, you can feel sad, of course, you cry, but it's about feeling it and expressing it. So if you feel an emotion more than a couple hours, or even up to 3 days, if you don't allow yourself to feel it within that amount of time, it's going to become stagnant. So then it's going to become part of it's going to dominate your vibration. So you're going to be stuck in the energy of sadness, and what's going to happen is the more you don't feel that, and this could be you could not feel this sadness, maybe you felt this sadness as a child and now you're 30 years old and that sadness is still built up, and it begins to just, act as a barrier because it's not flowing. So your waters aren't flowing. And so, you begin to create calcifications in your emotional body, which end up leading to diseases. And you'll continue to attract things that make you feel sadness as a way, because your spirit guides and your angels and your soul even wants you to wake up to the sadness. It wants you to feel the sadness, because once you feel the sadness, then it can move, and then your emotions can flow again, But if you don't feel the sadness, you're harboring it within you. You're holding on to it. You're clinging to this sadness. You're clinging to it, and you're clinging to it, and the more that's what you're becoming identified. The more you cling to the sadness, the more you're identifying it. So that's what happens, is it starts off as an emotion, and when you don't feel that emotion and you try to mask it and pretend you're happy even when you're feeling really sad, it builds up, and then if you don't feel this for more than a week, it becomes a mood. And then your mood is sadness, you're in this mood, I just can't get out of this sadness, I'm in this mood, and if you don't allow yourself to process it, and you still continue to pretend, and you continue to pretend, and you don't deal with the sadness, then it becomes your identification. Now you're clinging to the sadness, you're identified to the sadness, because now it's not I'm feeling sad, now you've convinced yourself I am sad, and so you have this constant story playing in your head that I am sad. So what are you going to attract? More things that make you sad, until you begin to feel the emotion, until you stop denying it, until you stop running from it, until you stop numbing it out. And so you're going to keep attracting things that make you, you'll continue to attract loss, or you continue to attract rejection, or things that make you feel really sad, that break your heart. But this is the whole purpose of life, is to break your heart, so that more, we act like heartbreak is such a terrible thing, and you shouldn't experience heartbreak, and you should never let your heart get broken. But that's the whole purpose in living, in my opinion, is emotional resiliency, is allow your heart to be broken, because it's when your heart opens up, that's when the divine light, the highest part of yourself, like I was talking about in the beginning, can fill you and can really make you the lightest. It just opens you up, it softens you, it makes you more loving and more, so we think of heartbreak and being sad is a terrible thing, but it's really the most beautiful thing, because it's that's when you can begin to flow again, and it's that light that comes in is what will heal you, and it just makes your body feel so much better, and you feel so much more, you're connected. And when we deny our heart space, we disconnect from God or source or whatever it is, or your angels. When we're not present with our hearts and we're not present with our emotions, then we're living purely from our mind, and our mind will always seek separation. It will always seek division. It will always seek like lack, and there's not enough. And so that's what happens when we get into those emotions of the sadness. We're like trying to get out of it, and we're not, or even people that are in situations of their life, like, can you be completely, fully immersed in presence in your daily mundane, like I'm sitting in an empty house right now, like there's nothing going on, there's nothing like exciting, or like a lot of people think that like, there has to be this like either like constant drama or there's constant like big things happening all the time, but life is actually made up mostly of the mundane moments of like where there's nothing happening. But can you be present with that and believe that nothing that is happening is actually, meant for you? Like that nothing is filled with everything, and that's those moments of being deeply connected to yourself with not being connected to anything in the external world, and believing that you're still, whole, and you're still valuable. Like even if you have nothing around you, can you like, and there's nobody stimulating your emotions, because this is the point we get to, is like we're so like we're numb, our emotions are so stagnant, we're not feeling them at all anymore, that we're completely numb to them. So in order for us to feel, we have to create like big emotions like anger, or we have to create drama in order to feel, or we have to create like pain and suffering and loss and rejection and like all these like horrible, awful feelings in order to feel anything anymore, because we don't feel the other spectrum, because we're stuck in those emotions. And the only way that we can feel is by feeling lower based emotions. We aren't even in tune to our higher based emotions of like peace and acceptance and joy and love and passion and and fulfillment. And that's what we're all seeking, in my opinion, is we're all seeking fulfillment. But can you feel fulfilled in every moment, like right here, right now? Because the only thing that exists is now. And that's why it's really important to cultivate presence and awareness, because then when you're in this state of awareness, you witness your emotions and you're no longer identified to them. They're not who you are. Just because you're feeling angry doesn't mean that he's an angry person, or like I am angry. Just because you feel angry does not mean you have to identify with that. Like you can allow it to come and you can allow it to go. That's what the whole experience of, that's what emotional resiliency is. It's like, instead of getting caught up and like, a lot of people get like they create an obstacle. Like they feel like their emotion is something that they have to fight against, rather than something that is like helping them or teaching them, or because a lot of time like that sadness, it was like sadness to me, this is what my guides were showing me, was like it takes like impurities and it kind of like sweeps them out, like it sweeps out the debris, like it helps to get those little fragments, those little pieces that are still kind of stuck in there, and it really helps them to kind of like scoop them out, kind of like, I don't know, I'm literally seeing like water being like poured into a pore, and it's like purifying it, kind of coming out. And this is how it's just like that, yeah, exactly, getting to the root of the emotion, instead of like, how like a hair, that's kind of what I'm seeing, that like we kind of just cut it off. Think about the grass, we just cut it off, but there's still that root underneath, like, can we like, the sadness of our emotional root like helps to get down into that pore, so we might feel like anger, or maybe that's when we like rip it out, we rip it out. And then that allows us to like, then the sadness allows for us to come and like heal it. So then the sadness comes and cleans it out. And then as we tend to it and we're kind to ourselves and we're compassionate to ourselves through these times of sadness, of immense sadness, maybe you're feeling lots of grief, maybe you've experienced a lot of loss in your life and you've never actually allowed yourself to completely feel the loss. So if you stay stuck in that loss, that becomes your dominant vibration. Loss becomes your identity. Loss becomes your belief system, and your belief system is what attracts more things to you. What you believe is what you will see more of in the world. That is what you will look for. That is what you will seek out. So if you believe there is loss, if you believe there is lack and there's not enough, that is what you will see in the world. So when you're in those emotions of sadness or anger, any emotion to you that feels uncomfortable and you're trying to get out of it, that's what a lot of us are trying to do, is get out of it, to escape. So here's another example of what I mean when we're like, what it means to be present and mindful. And one thing that came to me right away is driving. So I don't drive a whole lot right now. And what a lot of people are doing right now, especially in the United States, that's all I can speak for, like, people are driving unconsciously. And I think that is one of the most dangerous things ever. And this is like an example I want to give you of what it means to be present and mindful in every moment, including when you're driving, because we should be aware and we should be conscious when we're driving. Because the thought of me the thought to me of driving doesn't necessarily, like, I feel very conscious and aware when I'm driving, but the fact that a lot of people on the roads that we're driving with are not, and so that's the part that kind of scares me, is that this is what I mean by, so here's like 2 examples. The first example that kind of came to my mind was, you're driving, okay, and maybe you're going to meet a friend, maybe you're going to meet your partner, or you're going to go on a date, or you're going to go have a nice dinner, or you're going to eat something, you're going to go do something fun, okay? So you get in your car, and maybe it's like a drive there, maybe like 30-minute drive, and instead of being like super present and super aware of your butt and the awareness of your body on the seat of your car, is it leather, is it soft, like what are you feeling, like bringing your awareness to your hands on the steering wheel, bringing your awareness to the air conditioning hitting your face and cooling your body, bringing your attention and your awareness to your foot pedal, or your foot on the pedal, bring your awareness to the smell that you are smelling at the present moment, like bringing yourself back to your senses. That's mindfulness driving. Like, you should be driving mindfully, and you should be like connected to your hands on the steering wheel. You should be like conscious of what you're hearing, like on the radio. Like, you should be completely fully immersed and present in what you're driving. But a lot of us, while we're driving, we're already like, we're in our minds, and we're like having the conversation we're going to have when we're at the restaurant with our friend, or we're salivating, or we're daydreaming about what we're going to eat, and we're already like, a lot of people like work up their whole scenario in their mind before they even get to their destination, and the whole 30 minutes they're driving, they're already there. They want to skip over the driving part, and so their mind puts them into this I don't know. They're anticipating. I wanted to say this word, but I could not get it out, so forgive me. It puts them in this state where they're like constantly anticipating the future, and they're not even present like in the car while they're driving. So this is what I'm talking about when people are unconscious while they're driving. They're in their minds in a scenario that hasn't even happened yet. So this is another thing that came to me, is like, just when you're just as much as when you're like anticipating, because I'm picking up on a lot of like hypervigilance, and a lot of people are like looking for things to go wrong. They're like waiting for things to go wrong. But here's what Spirit keeps telling me, like, can you believe that things are getting better and getting better? And just because like things maybe good right now doesn't mean that they're going to go bad. Just because like things are working out for you doesn't mean something bad is going to happen to you later, and that like you have to like constantly be on the lookout, because that's like hypervigilance, and you're like, okay, well, things are really good now, but they're bound to go bad, because maybe you grew up in a home where like things were good, and then all of a sudden, nope, things were bad, And so we'll constantly be anticipating this, and we're going to be looking for the things that are, going to go wrong. Like, maybe I'm going to be abandoned, maybe I'm going to be betrayed, maybe I'm going to be, and you just go to these scenarios in your mind, and you're not present with your emotional body. So this is what happens when I was talking about being like, our emotions can be irrational. So if you're not conscious with your emotions, and your emotions aren't grounded, and you're not aware of your emotions will kind of like run the show. And if you can't see that emotion is because a lot of times like we'll think of scenarios so much in our mind that our mental, like our thoughts will begin to evoke emotion within us. So if we are beginning to anticipate like we're going to have an argument with somebody, and you're replaying the argument in your mind, or you're like getting yourself all amped up about what you're going to say, and like you're coming up with a scenario, like the more you're evoking that energy and that emotion of anger within you. So a lot of us are addicted to lower based emotions like anger or drama or chaos or pain or suffering. And so we'll literally begin to create thoughts. Like, if we feel good, if we feel any sort of like pleasure, or we feel at peace, and we're like things are working out, we'll be like, oh no, like this is not okay. Like, it's not okay for me to feel this good. If I feel this good, it's definitely going to be taken away. And so we instantly go to the scenarios in our mind of losing or being rejected, or like those things of being betrayed. Those are your abandonment wounds. Those are your wounds. So you have to notice that as you begin to think those thoughts, you're generating that feeling, so that you're creating it first, so that it doesn't happen to you on the external world. So you're like protecting yourself, so that you're like rejecting yourself before you can be rejected. And so this really keeps people stuck, and it keeps them like creating more scenarios where they feel that same wound of like loss or abandonment or rejection, instead of like being present with the emotion and be like, wow, okay, I see that I want to react very strongly right now emotionally. Like I want to be very, like I want to get angry, or I want to get mad, or I want to cry, or I want to run away, you know, like if you can get that like close to your emotions and like, why am I feeling? Why do I want to run away from this? Why do I want to, you know, and instead of like beating yourself up, really extending yourself compassion to move through the emotion and allow the emotion to move through you. You don't have to identify with it. Just because you're feeling angry or just because you're feeling sad does not mean that that's who you are. So just like the scenario in the car when you're driving and you're anticipating and you're not present with your car, or you're not present, like with your car, with, the traffic that's around you, like, really important to like focus on your breath while you're driving. Like it's the same concept of like trying to escape. That's just like a more physical and mental part of it, like where we do it in our daily lives. Like maybe we don't even recognize that we're trying to escape while we're driving. Like we're trying to get to our destination. It's like we want to be to the destination, but we don't want to be in the in-between. And that's kind of like so funny because it's kind of like a post that I posted. The song In Between by Scotty McCreery came to my mind. It's like, sometimes it's like that feeling of like being in the void, and like maybe you're letting go of something old, but the new hasn't quite begun. Can you be in that like middle space where it's like nothing's really happening, and believe that nothingness has value, that you're meant to be there, that you still have value in this nothingness. And it's like in this space that all like, that's when we can create, and that's where like we can birth new life, is in that in-between state where, things aren't completely, like I love this quote, it's coming to mind. The same day that you plant the seed is not the same day that you like get to eat the fruit off the tree, so it takes time, it takes process, and like that's emotional resiliency. It's like all these emotions are going to come up during like trial and error, during times of rejection or like failure. These emotions are going to come up, but can we move through them? Can we not like get stuck in them? Can we not cling to them and then identify with them, and then they become like our identification, and like that's what we're going to attract more of? And then we get into this state where it's just like, oh, bad things always happen to me, and like love never works out, or I'm always disappointed, or I'm always broke, or like, I'm always in pain, there's always something wrong with me. Like then you get into that's the belief system. So then when you begin to believe those things and you're literally like saying those things out loud, then you're going to create that, and you're creating with the way that you speak about your health, and when you're present and you're mindful, you're not just like word vomiting from every emotion you're feeling. So if you're angry, you're not just like saying mean things just because you're feeling angry right now, and you're not like projecting it onto other people. You no longer, like, you could begin to communicate in new ways, and this can really alter your relationship with the world, with like your coworkers, with your family members, with your loved ones, and you begin to communicate from this state of presence, and you're no longer communicating from this irrational place of these emotions that you're feeling that you're completely unaware of. Like when you're present and you're aware of your emotions, you see like, okay, well, I'm feeling a little sad or disconnected or angry right now. So I notice that if I communicate from this place, I might communicate from a place of like harshness, or, I don't know, it's just like being conscious of that. And can you like go and sit in like meditation or sit in the quiet and be with yourself and be like, okay, why are you feeling angry, and how can I tend to you? How can I make you feel better? Because then when we ask ourselves that question, like we ask ourselves, how can I make myself feel better? And then we receive the answers from, what happens a lot of times is when we're obsessed with overthinking a certain scenario, or we're obsessed with like looking for things that are going to go wrong because we don't believe that things can go right for us. The more that we're like in that state of like constantly thinking, we're almost overthinking. We can't allow spirit, or like we can't allow ourselves to receive that divine guidance that shows us our highest path, that's leading us in our highest path, that's telling us everything is going to get better. Like, can you believe that? And that's what my guides have been telling me, is like, you can believe that things are going to get better. Like, things are going to keep getting better and keep getting better for you, and things are going to keep getting better for you, and they're going to keep getting better for you. Can you believe that? And like every time I want to think of like the worst case scenarios, because that's kind of like what I was taught, and that's like one of my wounds. That's like the hypervigilance. It's like if you've experienced like trauma or anything that gave you PTSD in any area of your life, like you're going to look for things that are going to go wrong. And so you have to be really aware of this part of yourself that wants to seek out things that are going to hurt them, because they're trying to protect themselves. They had to do this in childhood. So there's a part of them that's always looking out for danger, that's always looking out for things that are going to hurt them, so that they can be prepared. But that's the thing, is like we can't control our emotions. I was kind of saying that at the beginning, and we've tried so hard to like control ourselves, and control how other people react to us. And that's why we put on the mask, and that's why we pretend, because we don't want people to, you know, evoke a certain emotion in us and like be vulnerable and show that part of ourselves. And so then we like hide that part of ourselves. And if we're hiding any part of our emotional selves, then we're really, what we're doing is we're betraying ourselves. We're not being honest, and we're not being truthful to how we're truly feeling. And that's just like a learned behaviors, because we might have been taught that like, oh, if we are vulnerable, if we do express ourselves, if we do show our emotions, we're going to be abandoned, or we're going to be rejected, or we're going to be, and so as adults we begin to do that, and we begin to like hide different parts of ourselves. But if we want to feel that sense of fulfillment, and that sense of wholeness, and that sense of like completeness, and like we don't need anything outside of us, and we can feel that like I said, that feeling of fulfillment in the void of the nothingness, and believe that we're valuable and that we're already whole, we're going to struggle, because we're going to feel very fragmented, and we're not going to see ourselves as whole, because we're denying different aspects of ourselves. And so in order to feel that like wholeness within yourself, and that's when you begin to attract wholeness without, like, you don't attract things that are going to break you. You're going to attract things that are going to like fill you and build you up, and give you this sense of completeness, and this sense of like this home, and this sense of truth and honesty, is because that's what you're embodying within yourself. And you're no longer denying certain aspects of yourself or certain emotions just because it makes somebody else uncomfortable, or just because it, because just like a lot of people, like I said, a lot of people feel really deeply sad, but they are pretending to be happy. And so when we're more present, we don't just act from, this is how people want me to respond. We act from this state of like, wow, I'm feeling really sad today, and I can't be my funny, normal, happy-go-lucky self because I'm struggling today. And we can voice that with this sense of like, this is okay, and it's safe for me to say I'm struggling today, rather than being like, pretending you're not, or isolating yourself or rejecting yourself before you can allow yourself to feel that. So can you move through your emotions? Instead of like getting stuck in them, and really use them as a way to, because they are going to break you. Our emotions are meant to they're meant to help us grow, and so if we don't feel them, then we stay rigid, we stay the same, we just repeat our habits. We live from the subconscious mind, like I was saying, because a lot of people, when we drive, we're driving just from a state of habit, because we know how to, but we're not like really present with what we're doing. And to me, that's really dangerous. I don't know if anybody else thinks anything about that. If you have any, perspectives on that, definitely leave a comment if you'd like, because I was just thinking about that, and I think that's kind of bizarre, is like how many people are driving from a state of like unconscious awareness. They're just they're not present in the moment at all. They're like thinking about what happened last Sunday or what happened 10 years ago on their drive to work every morning, because they're stuck in that state of sadness, because they're clinging to it, because they won't allow themselves to feel it. They won't allow themselves to express it. And I think that's where a lot of us struggle. And where a lot of us are struggling right now is that we have all these emotions, and that's like, a lot of us people don't teach us about emotions, And so we have all these emotions, but they don't teach us necessarily how to express them, or in healthy ways that we can move through them and like maneuver them, because it's like a navigation system, and like you can navigate your way, and you can like, be a great sailor. It's kind of like the same concept. Like you can be a sailor of your emotions, like a leader. You can be a leader of your emotions. Your emotions don't have to dictate, they don't have to, your waves don't have to take you everywhere. Like you can hold steady and firm in your emotions, and waves can crash up against you, and you can still hold in your alignment. You can still hold that, sense of like, okay, yes, I'm feeling these emotions, but they're like shaping me. They're kind of smoothing away my rough edges, and that's kind of what the waves do to the rocks over time, is like they begin to smooth them. So our emotions, if we allow them, our emotions, they feel very painful, and they feel very uncomfortable, and we're always trying to get out of them, and we're trying to escape them. But really, if we can be present with them, then they can like move us through with the least amount of resistance. They're going to like smooth us. They're going to shape us into because whatever we're going through is meant to build us and to create, the highest version of ourselves. It's meant to reunite us with our essence, like I was saying in the beginning, like the truest part of ourselves. So if we can see it, like the things happening on the outside to us, as this like a refinement process of like, smoothing us down and, shaping us and molding us into who we're meant to be, then we don't have to see it from this place of like, oh my gosh, all these terrible things are happening to me and things seem so terrible right now and like things are awful. Like, can we see like, oh my gosh, can we see the bigger picture and be like, okay, I see that what is happening in this season is going to help me in another season, and like what I'm learning now is going to be a resource. It's going to be a tool for something that will help me in the future. And can we see it like, wow, I'm becoming who I need to be now so that I can be this person then, like, and kind of look at it from that aspect rather than like, like all these terrible things are happening to me out of my control. Can we take back, because it's the emotional control. When we take back the emotions and we're no longer attached to our emotions, we have that emotional freedom, then we can allow ourselves to feel a lot more safe, a lot more in control, even though we're actually surrendered. And that's the whole purpose of the feminine energy, is really to be in the energy of acceptance. Can I accept this present moment? Can I accept everything for what it is right now? Can I accept that I'm feeling this emotion and not try to get out of it, not try to escape it, not try to label it and tell it that it's wrong? Or, can I just be with it, and can I just love it? And can I just hold this space? The feminine just like holds the space. Can I just hold this space for it to be here? And can I trust that it will pass? That it's here and it's meant to be here, and can I tend to it like a little baby? Can I nurture it? And this is actually what teaches us how to really care for ourselves and how to nurture ourselves and tend to ourselves in our heaviest, darkest times, and come out softer and come out kinder. Because if we don't meet the challenges in our life with a sense of like, you're here to teach me and to make me a better person and to help me evolve, then you're going to see it as something you have to kind of battle and fight against and try to escape and get away from. Like, I have to run away from you, like, no, it's something you can meet with like a sense of like appreciation and gratitude, knowing that whatever you're going through right now is going to help you in a future situation. Can you give thanks already for what you're learning now, for what you can use, later? And really being conscious and aware of, because we're always going to continue to grow, and so there's always going to be more. There's always going to be more goals to attain. There's always going to be, more things to accomplish and do. But can you be present with all that you have right now, and not try to like get somewhere else, and just come back to the here and now and be with your breath, be with all that is. So I hope this was helpful for you. I hope this was healing for you, and I will be back next time. I'm sending lots of love.